Hey, everybody. Pam Cooper here with the Powerful podcast. Every woman has a strong story. And what I mean by that is that every woman has a moment in her life where she has to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. And this is my very first podcast with my friend Lori Knowles. Lori is somebody that I met in networking. Lori is an independent. What's the term?
A damsel in defense safety educator.
Safety educator. And needless to say, I have purchased quite a few items from, as a realtor, I have purchased quite a few items from Lori to keep myself safe. But also, she's an educator, and so she teaches you not only how to use it, but how to protect yourself and how to keep yourself safe. And as a matter of fact, she just had an article that she wrote on awareness of your surroundings, and it was a great article. Lori, before she did this, Lori had an amazing 27-year career in the Stafford Fire and Rescue in Stafford, Virginia. And what I find interesting about that, Lori, is that this is a very male-dominated industry.
It is.
I mean, let's be honest. What brought you here?
What possessed me
What
to do
possessed
that?
you, Lori?
Well, honestly, I started volunteering with the rescue squad in the fire department when I was 19. And I started that because I was on my way up and down I-95. Now, this is when 95 was only 2 lanes. So, long time ago.
It's a little while ago.
It was a little while ago, yeah. And I would see the wrecks and the accidents on the side and on the road and what have you. And I wanted to stop and help, but I didn't know what to do. I knew CPR, I knew basic first aid, but I wasn't going to get into the weeds of somebody in a car accident without having some training, some education and training. So in the paper, there was a class offered at the local rescue squad for EMT, and I took that class. And then I got involved volunteering, and it was just so much. To say it's fun, it probably sounds bad, but when you're an adrenaline junkie, I'm going to tell you, I like to drive fast, and I always have, and I like to drive fast, and the sirens and the woo-woos, but I really like to help people. I don't like to see people hurt. I don't like to see them injured. I don't like to see them in any kind of stage of sorrow or whatever. And if I can do something to help them, then I will do that. Or if I can't do it, I know so many people and resources and everything. I can get somebody to them. And that's how I got into it. And then about 2 years, I guess about 3 years after that, this is kind of funny. I started volunteering with the fire department as well. And we were burning down some, now I was like 20 at the time, maybe 21. And we were burning down some houses that people had given us. We were using them for training, right?
Right.
Well,
otherwise it'd be a little morbid.
Otherwise, it's in poor form, and there's way too much paperwork when you burn somebody's house down and they don't want you to, right? It's rude. So we were burning these houses down, and my boyfriend / fiance at the time saw me come out of one of these houses in full fire gear with a axe in one hand and the hose line in the other. And I pulled my helmet off and my mask off, and there was black soot. And I'm like, I really like this. This is so much fun. And then I saw him, and he looked at me and he goes, "No wife of mine is going to be riding on the back of a screaming fire engine." And I looked at him and I went, "Really? You think so? Really?" So we did have to compromise a little bit. I did kind of go more on the EMS side because we talked about it, and he goes, "I'd really rather you not do that," and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to give up the ambulance. So he was fine with that. So in my volunteer years, I earned my EMT instructor certification, my CPR instructor certification, and just gained a lot of valuable experience and time and know-how and all that kind of stuff, running up and down the streets of Stafford County and taking care of people. And
But as I
I
understand it,
really
you
liked it.
you went back to school.
I did. So I was
To,
in college at the time, and really didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I started out, I knew it was medical something. So I started out as a lab tech, because the other thing that got me into the laboratory field was EMS, because now I wanted to know, well, what happened inside the body when somebody was having a heart attack or difficulty breathing or asthma or seizure, what was going on inside? So I wanted to know what else was happening. So I got into laboratory, and I worked in all aspects of medical laboratory. So nuclear medicine, which is so cool, um, microbiology, chemistry, blood bank, all the things. It was just really neat and fascinating to me. Um, and then by that time I was married, and my husband was a Marine, and we were transferred to Millington, Tennessee. And if you've ever been near Millington, Tennessee, the only reason that town was there was because of the Navy base. Well, the town is no longer there because the Navy base is gone.
no kidding.
Um, yeah, but it was outside of Memphis. And so we were there for 3 years. And I always say that the only good thing that came out of that was my firstborn child. Because Tennessee at that time, 86 to 89, was still, I'll just leave
Pretty
it as
rural.
it's
Pretty
rural
rural.
and backward. Let's put it that way. And being from the North and raised a little bit differently, I had some problems with some of the racial discrimination that
You
went
stood
on.
out a little bit there.
I stood out just a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, just a little bit, because I called people out on it, but because I have a big mouth. So,
Well done.
you know, well, we moved back up here, and I was working in the hospital, and like, I really want a job in fire and EMS. That's what I want to do. But there weren't any locally, and I wanted to stay local. I knew that. So in '93, I was working in a laboratory here off of from Mary Washington, and Stafford County Fire and EMS had a 6-month temporary position open up. So I took it, because I didn't need benefits. I didn't need health insurance. I had that covered by the military. I didn't need sick leave or annual leave, because I was only going to work 3 days a week. No nights, weekends, or holidays. 3 days a week, Monday through Friday. 13 and a half hour days. I'm like, I can do that. I don't need the benefits, right? 6 months after that, I was asked if I wanted to stay full time. So I accepted that. And at that time, I started just doing more and more EMS. What classes do I need? Leadership classes, public speaking classes, education classes, anything I could take, I took, whether the county would pay for it or not. And I'm a firm believer in, give a man a fish, teach a man to fish, right?
Right.
If you give somebody everything,
Let's just change that up. Let's just change it up to a
sure.
woman.
Yeah, there you go. Give a woman a fish, teach a woman a fish. And I can fish too. It's fun. And I'm a firm believer in that. You've got to take some stock in your own self, in your
That's right.
future, in your present, in your future, right? And your education. So I started taking fire classes as soon as the firefighter classes were offered. I got into those. I had a vision. I could see Stafford County moving forward. It was a combination system at the time, career and volunteer, and it still is, but there are a lot more career providers now. And but I knew I was going to have those fire certs. So I got them before I had to. Before somebody told me to do it, I went ahead and did it. And then when it came around, they said, well, you're going to take it again. The instructor, who also worked for the county, said, why? She just took my class. I'm not going to teach her anything different, you know? So because I took the initiative to do it on my time, I didn't have to retake it, which I was thankful for because that class is hard. It's hard. I was quite a bit younger then too, so I didn't mind so much crawling around in what, about 100 pounds of gear, and getting all sooty and smoky and nasty and messing up my hair and breaking my fingernails and all that kind of stuff. And um, but that's what I did. And then once I got my initial certifications, the entry level ones, if you will, then I went for officer classes, instructor classes, and I ended up teaching anything EMS related. And also fire classes. I taught firefighter level, firefighter 1 and 2. I taught hazmat, hazardous materials operations. I taught, which is how to deal with hazardous materials. I taught emergency vehicle operator, how to drive the ambulances, the fire trucks, all that kind of stuff. I taught EMT, emergency medical technician. I taught advanced cardiac life support, pediatric life support to not
So
only doctors and nurses, but also my peers.
You just fully embraced this. This was
I
just,
fully
you
embraced
found
it.
your passion.
I became EMS, and in my office, and a friend of mine gave it to me. She nicknamed me the training goddess, and I still have that. I still have that plaque. It's upstairs in my room, but it's pretty funny, and everybody knew me as Stafford County's training officer. I was a training officer, but my goal was to run EMS operations in
Okay,
Stafford.
now wait a minute here.
Okay.
So again, here we go.
Here we
Were
go.
there any women doing this?
No. Well, there were some women in the fire department, yes, but nobody was doing what I was doing. Now, when I was first hired, we had a woman captain. Okay, there were only 15 of us at the time, and we only ran EMS, so we were all paramedics. And eventually, like I said, we had to be cross trained, and a lot of that was for insurance and benefits, things like that. Um, but there weren't really many women in it. And when Stafford County, when the Board of Supervisors did their ordinance for us to become a real fire department, well, I'm a real boy now. Yeah, right. And it had to be by ordinance. Then we needed a fire chief. At the time, we had a director of fire and rescue services, like human resources director, finance director. They were the director. They weren't a fire chief. There's a big difference. And once we had that fire chief, then we became a fire department. And then the ranks changed and the hierarchy changed. And I just kept right along, plugging right along, climbing that ladder,
Okay, but at
in
some
spite of
point,
some of the things that happened.
now that's the point I want to get to. At some point, you ran into a brick wall.
Oh, head first. So when the director put out a promotional process for captain, I was a lieutenant at the time. And the highest we had was captain. I was lieutenant, and it was myself. We went through this whole big assessment center and everything, and it was office work. It was practicals. It was interviews. I mean, it was pretty grueling, to tell you the truth. Well, I came out number 2 out of 6.
How many of those were women?
Just me. Just me.
Interesting.
And I came out 2 out of 6. And there were 3 positions, 3 captain positions. And I was not chosen.
Okay. Why?
Well, this is
Hey,
going to
hang
be
on one
hard for
second,
some
Lori.
people to hear.
I gotta plug in. I just realized my computer. I plug it in. So I'm gonna cut this out of our thing. But hang on one second, because I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I just realized I thought I had it plugged in, but I don't. Give me a second.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I asked the director, I said, why was I not promoted? And what do I need to do to get promoted? And he said, step outside to my outside office because he smoked. So I'm like, okay. So we went out there. He says, well, you have 3 things wrong with you. I'm like, okay, what can I do to improve? You wear your rank on your ass. I still don't know what that means. Politics
Did he
and
really say you
yes,
wear your rank on your ass?
yes, he really did say that. The second reason was politics, and the third reason was gender.
Oh man, the
So,
the the cardinal sin, the
uh-huh.
crime of being a woman.
So at that point, I was like, okay, um, thank you. I turned around, I went, and I mean, what am I going to say, right? But what I did is I went right upstairs to HR, and I told the HR director, who was a woman, what just transpired.
Right.
And I was told, I'll never forget this. I was told, well, he's the director. He can do whatever he wants.
Unbelievable.
And I said, but he just discriminated against me. Doesn't matter. He can do whatever he wants.
Unbelievable. And here's an example of a woman deciding that
Yeah,
women shouldn't need to push the boundaries. They shouldn't push the ceiling.
right,
She was just willing to accept it.
right. Well, I took it a step further and I called a lawyer. Told them everything that happened. They said, well, you do have a case. It's going to cost you about $10,000. It'll consume 2 to 3 years of your life. And then they will have to give you the job. Do you want it do you want the job that bad? And are you willing to go through that to get it? And I said, you know what? No, I'm going to outlast them and I'm going to get it anyway.
I love that.
They're like, okay. And at that point, I had in my head that that's exactly what I was going to do. I was going to keep taking the classes, keep improving on myself, kind of keep my head down, get experience, make those connections, make those relationships with people. And I was going to outlast them. And that's exactly what I did. The director was since, several years later, ended up leaving the department, not on really good terms. I'll leave it at that. 2 of the people that were hired, actually the 3 people that were hired over me, the 3 men that were hired over me, all of them either took a voluntary demotion or were demoted due to misconduct.
No kidding.
No kidding. No kidding. And I just kept plugging along, plugging
I don't
along.
I
And
don't I don't I don't feel like a sense of like there's just that it was justified, like too bad for those guys. I think that's disappointing that they allowed their career to go in that direction,
I agree. It was
male
very,
or female.
and all 3 of them are still friends of mine.
Oh,
They're
well,
all,
that's interesting.
they are all friends of mine. And I was like, well, you know what? It is what it is. You make your choices.
That's right.
You make your choices. And one of the inspirational posters or pictures I always had in my office was one of integrity. And I
That's
hold
right.
my integrity extremely high. And I have a tendency to hold people to that same level.
Lori, I would say that's one of the things I noticed about you when I first met you and appreciate about you.
Well, thank you. I mean, I try. I'm not perfect. I try. But yeah, we're still friends. And what's really funny is that after all this went down and I just kept on climbing the ladder higher and higher and higher, I ended up outranking all of them.
Well done. Well done, my
And
friend.
I'm like, you know,
And I bet
And
you honestly, at the end of the day, they probably have a lot of respect for you.
they have a lot of respect for me. Yes, they do. They still call me Chief. And a lot of the guys and gals that I used to work with, and I call them my coworkers. They weren't, they were out in the field. I was in the office at the end of my career, but I never called them. I always called them my coworkers because I would go out in the field with them sometimes. Sometimes I would drive the ambulance for them if they needed somebody to drive. They're like, "Chief, what are you doing?" I said, "I know how to drive an ambulance. Let me drive the ambulance. Get in the back, do what you need to do. I'm driving the truck."
That's real leadership
And then
there, Lori.
when I'm cleaning the back of it, they're like, "Oh no, Chief, we'll do this." I said, "No, this is the driver's responsibility. You go take care of what you got to take care of. I'm perfectly capable of doing this. Not a big deal." Um, and these guys and gals that are out there, they still call me Chief. Although I have to tell them, I say, my first name is Lori. It's okay. You don't have to call me Chief anymore. Although I do appreciate that. But you're my friends and you're my coworkers, and it's okay. If I'm in a white shirt and in my uniform, then yeah, you kind of have to call me Chief. But otherwise, just call me Lori,
All right, I'm going to shift gears on you, Lori.
Sure.
Okay, so I know that somewhere towards the end of your 30s, you had a little surprise
Surprise
in your life. Very
yeah,
unexpected.
yeah, very unexpected. So when you start pushing 40, it's really hard to lose weight, right? And you start working out and doing things, and I was doing that, and I was walking, and I was eating right, but I was tired and I was sick and I didn't feel good. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I went to the doctor. I said, I just don't feel good. I'm tired, this, that, and
I
the
need
other.
some
My
vitamin
doctor,
B.
I know, right? My doctor kind of looks at me and gives me the side eye a little bit, and I'm like, what? She goes, well, let's just run a pregnancy test. I said, oh no.
It's not
No,
even
no, 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 no.
possible, right?
That's not even possible.
And why was that not possible, Lori?
Well, it wasn't possible because my husband had had a vasectomy 3.5 years prior too. So the conversation in the doctor's office went something very close to this. You're pregnant. The doctor says, you're pregnant. Me. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. How did this happen? Do I really need to explain it to you? I'm like, no, really. How did this happen? He's 3.5 years post vasectomy, for the love of all that is holy.
It just couldn't be.
And she says, well, you live with Mr. 1 in 1,000. I said, I'm going to strangle him. Strangle him when I get home. Yeah.
Now, this is your husband. This is your husband of how many years at the time?
22 years. 22 years. Yeah.
Career military guy, career
Yep.
Marine.
Career Marine. Yeah.
You know what they say about the Marines?
Yeah, I do. Where there's a will, there's a way. Mm-hmm. My youngest always tells the other two now, my other two children, that he was the strongest swimmer of the bunch. Like, oh, Lord have mercy.
So you get pregnant at 40.
Yeah, I almost lost my mind. That is a discussion off camera and everything. You're going to love that story.
And you're in the middle of this amazing career.
I'm in the middle of this career. Yeah. And that kind of changed some things around a little bit, and I wasn't going to let it stop me. And it didn't stop me. And I just kept right along. I did what I was supposed to do, and I just kept moving right along. And because I knew what I wanted, and I wasn't going to let anybody take that away from me. It wasn't happening. Just like when I went back to school and got my bachelor's degree, I wasn't going to let anybody take that away from me either. Everyone said, oh, it's going to be too hard. You can't do this. You can't do. Don't tell me I can't do something. Tell me how I can do it. Don't ever tell me I can't. Tell me how I can.
So fast forward 5 years.
Okay.
What happens?
Fast forward 5 years, what, from pregnancy or from when I retired?
From the birth of your child.
Oh, so I was 40. How old was I? I was 45. All right. So Chris was 2 weeks shy of his 5th birthday when this happened. Okay. I was on duty. This is the other thing that happens to me a lot. I'm always on duty when things happen. I was on duty, and I had been talking to my husband on the phone, and he was out on the Rappahannock with Christopher, And then we got the calls for boat in distress started coming in. And I knew it was him. And I called the county fire chief because I was on a standby. I said, "This is what's going on. I have to leave right now. I'm going to Little Falls." He's like, "Okay, we'll meet you down there." I'm like, okay. So we get down there. Now it's probably, I don't know, maybe 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, something like that. It's dark. Okay. They still had not found my husband, and they still had not found my son, who was on the boat. And one of my friends at about, I want to say around 10:30, one of my friends from White Oak Fire Department found the boat. It was I want to say it was like a mile, maybe a mile and a half down toward Port Royal. Okay. And that's a long way on the water, right?
Yeah.
Found the boat and found Christopher still on the boat. Thank God. Because it's only by the grace of God I did not bury both of them.
And Christopher's 5 at this time.
Christopher was 2 weeks shy of his 5th birthday. Yeah. Yeah. And what happened was they ran out of gas, and Randy decided to jump in the water, thinking that he could just he felt he was close enough to the shore that, and this is all, I'm just surmising this, right? Because I really don't know. To try to get into the shore, because the rope for the boat was in the water and everything. So that's what we think happened. And he got hung up in all the garbage in that river. And Christopher to this day will tell you what happened. He'll say he saw his daddy drown. And when I got on the scene, I knew in my heart that Randy was gone, that my husband was gone. And I got there, and I pretty much went toe to toe with one of the deputies, and I said, "It's my husband in the water and my son on the boat. You have 5 minutes to find him before I become uncontrollable."
Yeah.
And this was a new deputy. Oops. And he's like, okay, ma'am. Okay, well, let's just, by that time, some friends had come, and my oldest son, my daughter was there, and kind of, ushered me away until we could find Chris at that point. And we recovered my husband's body the next day. And I got to tell you, when I went to the scene, and it was further down from Little Falls, family had loaned us, said, "Come sit in the house while you're waiting," and everything. I had walked down to the shoreline, and all my friends from Fire and Rescue are down there. They're all down there looking for my husband. Command post, state police, medevac helicopters, everybody is looking for him.
Yeah.
And I took one look at the incident commander, whom I've known since he was 12 years old, and he still looks like he's 12, quite honestly. And he I'll never forget the look on his face, and I just looked at him and said, "I can't be down here." And I turned around and walked back up the hill.
Yeah.
And then about 10 minutes later, one of my other friends recovered my husband's body. And then one of my other friends identified him for me, because I completely lost my mind at that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you have this moment where in one moment you've lost the love of your life. You are now instantly a single mom.
Yeah.
Of teenagers and a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And you're in the middle of this brilliant career.
Yeah.
And what happens? What's going through your mind?
Oh, well, it was like a bad country song. I lost my dog, I lost my house, I lost my husband, I lost, everything. And I remember it was 2 weeks after the accident, which was when we were able to have his service. And it was about a week after that. So it'd been about 3 weeks. I was sitting on the front porch of my house, just, blank stare, just, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And, I heard this little voice that said, "You're going to be okay. It's going to be okay." I'm like, all right. I don't think so, but all right. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, girl, you got a choice here. You can sit here and waller in self-pity and, oh, woe is me, and go into the bowels of depression, which nobody
Yeah.
would blame me for.
No.
Or I could pick myself up by my bootstraps and take care of my family, which is
Yeah.
what I needed to do. That was my choice. Those were my choices. And I'm sitting there, and I remember sitting on the front porch going, alrighty then. And I stood up and went in the house and talked to the kids and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And we're going to make it work. And that's what I did. And, it's a darn good thing I had life insurance policies because I paid everything off. And then that bad country song, you play it backwards and you get everything back. Literally. So I paid everything off.
Wow.
So I had no debt. And
Wow.
I had enough to put into a savings account, and I invested it, is what I did. I had a good financial advisor. I still have, he's the same guy, great friend of mine. And he's like, okay, this is what we need to do. This is how we're going to do it. I'm like, okay, I trust you. He said, just don't watch the stock market. I was like, okay, I trust you.
Yeah.
And
So,
yeah.
27 years, is that correct? 27
20
years in fire and rescue. 27 years.
27 years on the career side. I have a total with volunteer and career right now. I have a running total of 42 years of public safety experience.
Amazing. And so then why do you go in? I'm looking at the back wall.
Oh, you're looking
behind
at that?
you.
Yeah.
In your
Yeah.
uniform and all of your medals.
Yeah.
Your badges and
Those are my badges, yeah.
Your badges.
Those are all the badges that I had. Yeah.
So you decide to retire. Now, as I understand it, they didn't necessarily want you to leave. They wanted you to keep going.
Well, they kind of wanted me to keep going, but I got to tell you, being a woman in a man's world, especially in the fire department, is extremely difficult. And when I first started, it was really hard. When I ended, it wasn't. It was still hard. So there are more women in the fire department now, and this is globally, okay, or nationally, than there were when I started. And a lot of men don't like strong women. Let me just put that out there, okay? They really, really don't. And I don't mean physically strong. I'm talking mentally strong, emotionally strong. And when you're in the fire department, you have to be physically and mentally strong.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to think through things. You've got to be able to think on your feet, right? And women think differently than men, and that's okay. It's the way it's supposed to be, right? But I really wanted to hang in there for 30 years because I kind of like even numbers. And but after COVID and not getting any help and not getting support that I needed and constantly being told no, no, no while I'm watching the other divisions in the fire department get extra staff and more staff and more staff. And here I am trying to run EMS operations and be the infection control officer for the county, not just the department, but for the county during COVID.
Yeah.
And my phone going off literally 24/7. I had worked all the numbers out with my financial advisor and everything. And he goes, why are you still there? You can leave. Because I want to go through. He goes, but it's killing you. And it got to the point where when I pulled into the office, I was angry before I even got out of my vehicle.
Yeah.
And no one even said anything to me, but I was angry before I even got out of my vehicle. I would go into my office and shut the door. And I never did that. My door was always open.
Yeah.
Nope. I shut the door, like I'm done. And then one night I was laying in bed and I was thinking, you know what? Let me just look at those numbers one more time. And again, that little voice, and you know what voice I'm talking about, all right? Faith is a good thing, and it's a strong thing, and God will put you where he wants you when he wants you to be there.
That's right.
And that little voice said, you don't need to look at the numbers. You're okay. And I remember laying in bed going, okay. And I got up, came downstairs, it was about 10 o'clock at night, and I typed up my letter of resignation. I was off the next day, printed that bad boy off, signed it, made 2 copies, walked in. My assistant chief, my boss, was in a meeting. I said, I need to talk to you. Well, can it wait? I said, you got 5 minutes and then I'm out the door, but I need to talk to you today. He's like, okay. He comes in.
Yes, when you
Yeah.
make a
I'm like,
decision, Laura, you make a decision.
I make a decision. I make a decision, and I gave him that letter. I sat down in his office and all I did is I just slid that letter across his desk, and he read it and he about fell out of his chair. He said, are you sure? I said, I could never have been more sure than this. I am done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
So do you think the work that you did for 42 years, and certainly in the career that you had for 27, do you feel like, what kind of inroads do you think you made for women in this business, in this kind of
So
career?
I think just showing women that if you really put your mind to something, you can do this. And I got to tell you, and in the fire department, public safety, not just the fire department, but public safety, women don't have to be men. Okay?
Oh, Lori, well said.
You
Well said.
don't have to be men. Yes, we have to wear men's uniforms because they just don't make the women's uniforms, pardon me, but they suck. They're just awful. They are. They are just awful. So, you kind of get over that, but you don't have to be one of the guys. You can still be one of the girls. You're just working with the guys. But you do have to prove yourself every day. And any woman that tells you now that that's not true, my opinion is they are, they're kind of, they're not being honest with themselves, because it is true. You have to prove yourself every single day.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You just prove to them that you can still do it. You worked
Well, you
hard.
certainly outlasted them.
You outlast them. You keep your integrity high, your morals high. Don't get caught in some of these firehouse romances.
Oh, yeah.
Don't do it. Stay away from it. I mean,
that could be
I was
dangerous.
propositioned a lot, and I'm like, yeah, no. I am married. I've got children. No, because when I took my vows, I meant them.
Yeah.
And if anybody ever had chance to fool around, I did, because I was traveling a lot with my job, and I'm like, yeah, no, not doing it.
Yeah. You stayed true to yourself. You stayed true to your family. You stayed true to your faith.
You have to be true to yourself and your faith, and just keep plugging along. And because you know what? Way back when I didn't get that promotion, and I've thought about it over the years, and I have since forgiven that guy. Okay? I haven't forgotten, but I have forgiven, because holding a grudge just hurts me. It doesn't hurt him. He didn't care. He probably didn't even know. But that door wasn't open for me for a reason. I look at it like that. It wasn't time yet. God didn't have that in his plan for me yet. And it took me a while to realize it. And once that truth came through, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I can deal with this. And then instead of fighting it, I just embraced it. And that's when things really started opening up. Take this class. Yes, you can do this. Yes, you can go here. Schedules worked out miraculously. Things like, it's weird. It's just weird how that happens. Faith is what it is.
Totally. Do you have a favorite quote?
I do. My favorite quote is, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Henry Ford.
Henry Ford.
Yep.
I love it. Okay, so before I let you go, tell me a little bit about Damsels in Defense.
Oh, Damsel in Defense.
This is really funny, because the first time I met you, I thought your little logo said Damsels in Distress, and I go, that doesn't sound good. And you corrected me. You're like, no, Pam.
No, Pam. Defense. Don't try me, people. Don't do it. Well, no, do it, because I want to stun somebody. I'm just waiting. I was really offended when the guys that got caught grabbing people or women's rear ends at the Ferry Farm Walmart didn't grab mine. I'm like, why? I got a nice butt. Grab mine. Just because I'm going to hit you with 18 milliamps of, shockingly.
Hey, by the way, I should mention also this wine that we've got here is from our friend Rita Allen over at who owns City Vino in downtown Fredericksburg. This is a Grenache. So
Gosh.
pretty good stuff.
It's very good. Yes, it's
Yeah.
very good. Thank you. It's going to put me on my ear in a minute.
So you've been doing this for a couple of years now, and you love it, and you've been teaching.
I do love it.
You've been teaching classes. You're writing articles. You're doing presentations. You just did a presentation for the Fredericksburg Association of Realtors. You just did a whole presentation for them.
I did, and I did one for Women Connected just the other day, and
women are very vulnerable, and your message that I heard loud and clear was you don't have to be.
That's right. You don't have to be. Damsel in Defense is a company whose mission is to prepare, prevent, and protect women and their families from violence. And our goal also is to help survivors of human trafficking and help prevent human trafficking. And when I first found out about Damsel, it was about 5 years before I retired. I'd gone to a home party, help a friend of mine, and I was listening to the rep talk and everything. I'm like, you know what? This is pretty awesome. This is pretty awesome stuff. I could probably get behind that mission and get behind these products, because even back then, the products were really, I mean, they're just outstanding. And but see, I was already thinking about retirement. I was going to need something to keep myself off the streets and out of trouble, and something that I could
say that.
You like that? And something that I could get behind. I mean, seriously, Pam, can you see me selling makeup? You know my personality.
Well, I do know that you're sporting a new lipstick tonight.
I am sporting a new lipstick. That's a shout out to Julie Jennings, because she made me buy it. She had to teach me how to put it on, but I am coachable and I am teachable. So, but that's why I got into Damsel, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm in public safety. I've been in public safety. That's all I've ever done, is helped people and help protect people. I can do this. And about 2 weeks after I retired, I was in Damsel in Defense. And it is a lot of fun. I do it to support the mission. That is absolutely why I do it, is to support the mission and to educate people on situational awareness, how to keep their kids safe, how to keep them safe, what products to purchase, what to kind of stay away from, why to have certain things, comparing apples to apples. I mean, please, for the love of all that is holy, do not buy a stun device off Amazon. Okay, just don't do it. They're not strong enough, and it's just enough to really piss somebody off. And it doesn't help. It doesn't help anybody except the large corporation. That's all that helps. You know,
right.
I do this to help people. That really,
I
is
think
why.
the thing I love about you, Lori, is that you're not selling something unless you provide some education that goes along with it.
That is correct.
I appreciate that. Well, Lori, I mean, again, you know how I feel about you. You're just somebody that I've gotten to know, respect, admire. You have a remarkable career, but more importantly, I think you have just such a strong story to share with other women, to encourage them and inspire them to, when they get to that moment, they have that pivotal moment and they realize they have a decision to make. Can I move forward, or am I going to be stuck here?
You can always move forward, because it is about decisions. You have a choice. You have a choice. Was it easy? Oh, no. No. I am so thankful of several things. I'm thankful that I've got a strong, caring, and loving Heavenly Father. And I'm so thankful that He has put strong women and caring women in my circle. And my circle is not large. You know,
that's the one thing I say. Circle. That's exactly what I say. Keep your circle small.
I keep my circle small, because those are the people that I can depend on when I have a problem, and they know that if I call them, hey, I need you, something bad has happened, or it's about to happen.
Yeah.
And that's who I go to. So I'm very thankful of the people that God has put in my life in the past and the people that God has put in my life now, Pam.
Yeah. I'm
And
thankful for you, Lori, for sure.
it's just, that's what it's about. And can you do it? Yeah, you can do it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. Is it going to hurt? It's going to hurt. A lot of
Yeah.
tears. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But you have a choice. And teach yourself to fish.
Yeah.
Maybe what you need to do, teach yourself to fish.
Exactly. Hey, Lori, thank you so much for sharing some very personal moments in your life and for being such an inspiration to me and to other women. And I will see you at the next networking meeting.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And I'll see you at the next networking meeting. And we can talk about the other curveballs that have been thrown my way that, I'm like, yeah, well,
Sounds
okay.
good.
So,
Thanks,
all
Lori.
right. Well,
Bye.
thank you very much.